All right, folks, it's time for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Meki. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Take it away, guys.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave
and Meki, live from the Sydney studios in Australia. Jump into the chat room at freedomslips.com while we're on the air and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Check out shinysideout.net for show archives, our notes, which include all of the links we paste into the chat during the show, and other texts. Listen to us on FM WZZR 101.3 in Kentucky. And, there's so many ways to listen to Revolution Radio. There's www.freedomslips.com. So much, right? TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio Tuner, Speaker.com, iHeart, and Live 365. There's a lot of things you can actually tune into there, guys. Also, you can listen on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio or driving around in a GM motor vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio. All of those are revolutions in radio. The number to call in if you're in the United States of America is 347-688-2902. 347-688-2902. Or via Skype, you simply add Freedom Screen, one word, Freedom Screen, one word. Solaris, thank you very much. Another great show preceding us, warming up the audience. Thank you. That's awesome.
And
Dave.
a great guest too, Joanna. I don't know how she gets all the guests. She's booked out. If you want to be a guest on her show, good luck with that.
She's got the magic.
And she's fantastic.
That's right. Dave, how have you been, sir?
Oh, okay. Look, apologies to everyone for last week, Joe. The audio wasn't great, and so look, the irony, of course, if it is irony. Was in fact that Jane came back to my place during the week and did another 2-hour show and no audio.
Oh.
We tried to re-record it and still terrible. So we are gonna revisit that. I've pulled the video only for that is the only reason for it. So show number 105 will be it again. Don't worry, we're just going to redo it. I think it'll be easier.
Cool. Which means today is show number 106, or if you like to count like me, 6 and 100. That's a lot of shows. It is indeed. And last week I couldn't be with you because I was traveling again for work, which is awesome. It's always awesome. And I was suffering, which is surprising to be honest with you, from dodgy Skypeitis.
Yes, you mentioned that.
Right. So Skype would work and then drop out and work and drop out. And then I thought, look, this is just going to be too painful for Dave because I would have been in and out. And it just does not work. It's just odd. It's a hotel, and fair enough, but these are modern hotels, so I expect broadband, right? Guys, hotels, any hoteliers online, please upgrade your broadband, okay? If not, provide a networked connection, meaning a cabled connection in your rooms, okay? If your broadband Wi-Fi isn't up to it, cabled connection, thank you. I frequent all of the hotels a lot.
So every hotel in the whole world, you better get ready for Meki arriving.
That's right.
And don't call what you think broadband is delivered to each room, but broadband to the building, but it's thin band by the time it gets to be shared by everybody. It's no good. You can't do a business like that. That's just awful.
I agree. 100%. Now, on that, though, I was actually in Singapore, which, again, this is what surprised me, in the business park where the hotel was. In the business park, anyway. So all the travelers are not tourists. They're all business travelers. But my point here is, I've been traveling to Singapore for work for almost every year now for a long time, and what I noticed was everything is brown. It looked like Australia, right? The grass was brown, the trees were brown, everything is brown and dying. So I said to the cabbie, look, this is not something I'm used to. Singapore is very verdant normally. It's very lush and green and quite fertile. Yeah, everything grows and it grows like crazy. And he goes, yeah, it hasn't. Exactly, it's right on the equator, right? So, and he said, yeah, I know. Look, it hasn't rained in 5 weeks. And I go, that's unusual. Normally it rains every day. He goes, yes, I'm 50 years old, he said. And he didn't look 50, but, he obviously looked after himself. I'm 50 years old, and I have never experienced this. This has never happened before. And I thought, really? He goes, yep, we have never had this much of a dry spell. Never, ever. In the 50 years that he remembers. Now, that of course, just means one thing. There is no climate change. There's no weather event. This is just one of those crazy things that happens. In my opinion, if this is the new normal, that could spell disaster for the equatorial regions, right? If in fact we see extended droughts. But the thing is this: the clouds are there, and it was very cloudy, and so something is preventing the rain from falling, and that is a really worrying kind of thing. Because one thing we don't need is more of is desertification. We don't need any more deserts on this planet, right? We have enough. And if the equatorial zone were to turn into a desert, we would have a massive problem. But anyway, I just want to share that with you. Another weather event, maybe another normal. I hope not. But we'll see what's going to happen in the future. Time will tell.
Well, do you know what? I've got to add to that, Mac. Do you know what? If the rain doesn't want to fall out of the clouds, you mentioned it was very, very cloudy, but yet still no rain. That has to be unusual. And I am going somewhere. We've seen a lot of climate change and climate skeptics. I don't know how you can be a climate skeptic. You don't want there's no such thing as climate.
There's no climate.
What climate? That guy sciences. I know that.
Yes.
It's a serious matter. We laugh about it because what else are you can do? Yes. But with the possibility of having harp war going on right now between countries, the US is having an unparalleled snow event. It's like the deep freezing at the US. Australia's still got towns who are 38 degrees plus still. This is March, still breaking records. We've got 2 almost cyclones, one that spun up as a cyclone within 1,000 kilometres of another one. At the same time, if they both turn to cyclones and both hit, that'll be the first ever. We've got so much weather that's changing on this planet, and one of those things is how does the surface of the Earth get hotter now than ever before? That's the only question I ask, remembering that, and Meki's right with this, if he says that we've got big problems, the equatorial regions don't rain. And if you cast your mind back, Meki, do you remember there was a time round about the Middle Ages, I think it was, when the weather got a bit too wacky and farming, it's all about farming. If you can't make food,
it was a mini ice age.
You're in trouble.
You're right. That was about 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And in fact, this is why we call Greenland and Iceland. Now, today, if you go to Iceland, you'll find it's very green.
Yep.
It's actually very lush, right? And Greenland, on the other hand, is covered in ice and snow. 1,000 years ago, there was a climate event, and there are various theories around that. But that essentially saw the reverse. So Greenland happened to be quite green and lush, whereas Iceland was, as we figured, was covered in ice, right? So there was a reversal, right? And there was also a mini ice age and a famine that accompanied that in Europe. It was quite bad, in fact.
The thing that keeps humans on the planet is the stability of the climate. And without that, we can't have successful plantings for food production. And really, our whole existence became popular on the planet. Like, we became very good at doing, populating the planet because of food sources that are stable. Once you start to get an instability in the food source, then we've got all sorts of problems. And so that was the full segue all the way around there through climate back to us having problems. Oh, I'm in a mood today, I'll tell you that. But Meki, while I still got the talking stick, even though I've grabbed it out of your hands, I wanted to bring up the missing Malaysian Airlines flight data just for a sec. Okay, so
please.
It's said that it took off and it wasn't in the air very long, some 20 minutes, and I'll paste the link from the that I have. I'll paste the link into the chat room, and so everyone can sort of be on board with this. Now, it just takes me a minute. If you scroll down to the story, you'll find a graphic, and the graphic showing you the flight path, the altitude, the speed in knots, the track, which is its degrees of trajectory, longitude, latitude is its actual position, and also it also shows the radar that is currently, it's tracking it. So it flicks between all this detail. Pretty cool. Where it was lost on the radar is actually while it was at 35,000 feet, it vanished. Now, if you note through here in the story, there's an interesting quote. It is being denied, this is the quote, that the plane crashed into the sea, and I'm adding to this, at 35,000 feet, the plane vanishes. It simply vanishes. There is some more detail out there about this flight. I think there was 6 Aussies, 2 Americans, 239, including crew. Suspected lost. Yeah. I talked to a guy today who rang me, and I think he was on UFO Unearthed or UFO something, a show on Fox. I spoke to him today. He's giving a talk tonight about airlines and UFO sightings, and he has a lot of information. We're going to bring him on the show. I thought he's already said yes to him. He's an Australian, and he's been doing research for this, and he's been head of the equivalent of MUFON here, and been studying this for some 25, 30 years. Meki, if you cast your mind back to the guy who left Victoria to go to King Island to pick up the seafood in a Cessna and never returned.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the next day, apparently, there was a farmer in a field who looked up and saw, and also reported this. He looked up and saw a giant UFO with what looked like a Cessna stuck like a magnet underneath it, with its wings broken up and its tail, all misshapen, which had a flight number on the side. The plane's number, like the registration of the plane, matched that of the fellow who went missing. This is interesting new information that's coming out. Now, could that have happened to Malaysian flight XXX, whatever it is? Could it?
It obviously
MAS 370 disappeared, vanished off the radar, 35,000 feet, and all that the military aircraft have said that they've found in a region around about 1,000 kilometres from the point of loss is what looks to be, not is confirmed as an oil slick. But this is a shipping lane. The oil slick could have been caused by anything. There wasn't debris. You see, most of the stuff in a plane will float. Seats, debris. Bits of people, clothing, baggage.
At the very least, there should be an oil slick. At the very, very least, right? That's very true.
So at the moment, this is up in the air. Mind the pun. But the connection is, I got a call today from a fellow that studied this his whole life. He rings me, we chat for about 25 minutes, and then he's gone again. Yeah, he's got to talk tonight. That's all he studies, and maybe it's a hint. Maybe there's kind people out there trying to hint to us to bring this stuff up. But until I find debris, there's a possibility. I think we could be staring at another like what is it, Meki, off Florida?
The Bermuda Triangle.
It's another place maybe with mysterious events.
Well, there's the Devil's Triangle in the South China Sea, which is not quite the right latitude, longitude here. But look, I've for the longest time I've held the belief that some of these, let's call them what I think they are, dimensional doors or shifts or gateways, whatever, or whatever the other for them. They might be mobile. They may not be necessarily bound to location, but it certainly seems like the Devil's Sea in South China, in the South China Sea, as well as the Bermuda Triangle, just off the Florida Keys of Bimini as well, seem to be areas of high incidence, meaning a lot of air and sea traffic goes missing there a lot.
Yes.
And the most famous one being of course, Flight 19, and then these were the 5 Avenger bombers in 1947. 1947? And then the search plane, the Mariner, that was sent after them, was also... it's also disappeared. So both the flight itself, the training flight, and the search craft that was sent after it disappeared. Reminds you of this Marie Celeste a little. But yeah, look, this is a real phenomenon now. I'm just looking at the passenger list. Majority Chinese, 2 infants. I do hope they're okay. It's not a good thing.
But the addition now in the paranoia circles, or let's say the government information, is that there were 2 identity theft characters on board, and now they're saying possible terrorism. Well, yeah. As the plane disappears from 35,000 feet to 0, especially if it blew up in air, the debris stops pretty quick. So it's doing 472 knots at 35,000 feet. That comes to a halt pretty quick within a couple of 100 feet, and then starts to come down because the wind resistance is too high. It's not being pushed in the air by anything. And so the fail curve of an aircraft who has come apart in air isn't going to continue. It's not going to land safely at its destinations, surely, and it's going to break apart. So at the moment they're claiming that it was terrorism. That's another news source. But I don't know where to go with this at the moment.
There's a pilot here that has told the Malaysian newspaper, this was must have been early in the morning, very, very recently, that he actually managed to get in touch with the plane before it disappeared on an emergency frequency. And here it says here, he told the New Straits Times, which is the local newspaper in the area, the voice on the other side could have been either Captain Zahari or Farik, but I was sure it was the co-pilot. There was a lot of interference, static, but I heard mumbling from the other end. This was the last time we heard from them as we lost the connection. So
mumbling to me, Meki, doesn't sound as though they were in a panic state.
No.
Mumbling to me sounds like they were looking out the window at something.
Well, potentially. That's right. So we observed something, but we found this with other disappeared aircraft as well, where they remain fairly calm, saying, "Oh, the instruments don't work." But static is always a common thing.
Yep.
The sky doesn't look right. The water looks funny. All these wonderful things.
What's this fog? Yeah, that's 35,000 feet. Yeah.
So look, we don't know what happened. People say that it crashed, and they say, like I said, the Vietnamese think they found an oil slick. Maybe not, but there's no trace of wreckage at this point. We'll keep you updated as we during the show if anything breaks.
But do you know what, Mickey? This is a mystery. And if you can't smell a Segway from 1,000 feet or 35,000 feet, I'll tell you what today's show is all about. Maybe you can.
Sure, why not? Look, 100 shows ago, in fact, exactly 100 shows ago, and this is show number 106, remember, our 6th show, we looked at ancient mysteries, right? Ancient tech, ancient interference, whatever, ancient visitations, all these wonderful things. So what we're going to do today, after 100 shows, we're going to revisit the ancient mysteries. Updated information, hopefully for you guys, some thoughts that maybe are new to some of our listeners, because I don't think everybody has been with us for 100 shows. Be nice to think that they have, but I'm sure that's not true. So yes, so it's ancient mysteries. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
It's a great topic, I have to tell you. I loved it when we first did it. and it doesn't. I don't think we've truly solved anything in the meantime, to be honest. But every time Meki and I talk about things with our friends, these things inevitably come up because they are still unsolved, and they highlight the just how much or how little we know, how much we don't know, how little we do know.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first that is a favourite of mine, which is the Ancient Visitations. This is a quick intro. Ancient Visitations. The UFO/visitors mystery has been with us since the beginning. It's found all around the world in all the ancient cultures, and some of the most popular are the Australian Aboriginals, 40,000 years of untouched history. Sumerians speak generously of the Anunnaki, people from, that came from heaven, and in the Bible talks about people that came from heaven, that we were made, blah blah blah. I mean, it keeps going. It's unstoppable, that story from around the world.
That's right. Look, the thing is, we have our culture is littered with references to superior beings. Let's call them superior beings, right? And call them gods, angels. And in fact, if you look at the Ancient Testament, we need to spend a little bit of time here. It never spoke about. It did speak about a god, but there's always the sons of God, right? They were like a group of people, and then it says Yahweh Elohim, meaning it's actually the God that we speak of in the Bible is actually a group of people, or a group of gods, whatever you're going to call it. It's not just a singular. You can say it's the pluralis majestatis, fair enough, but I'm not sure that's true necessarily. So the point is, there was a group of superior beings that came down to the earth and took whichsoever woman they wanted and had children with them. And those were called the giants, the heroes of old. And if you know your Bible, you know what I'm talking about. Now, so you have to look back in time, like Dave said, very far back in time. In fact, today we still have similarities in our approach to these things. The cargo cults are one thing I want to mention here. During World War II, specifically in Papua New Guinea and other Pacific Islands, the Americans came and built bases to fight the Japanese, and brought with them all kinds of technology, runways and weather vanes and so forth. And the people that lived on those islands are relatively primitive, by as far as technology is concerned. They hadn't developed any, and they still today live quite removed from all of us. And they probably lived the same way they lived 5,000 years ago. Point is that when the Americans left, they built a whole bunch of stuff to bring them back. Now, we didn't know that immediately, but then anthropologists went and visited the area, and they found these runways and weather vanes and flags to measure wind speed, and also cargo crates on the side of the runway, and they were designed to bring back the superior beings, gods, if you will, right? That these people had come to know during World War II. I'm sure that the GIs would have given them, I don't know, candy and coke
tobacco.
and tobacco, right? All kinds of things, but these guys were flying about, and those guys, obviously having a very low technological standard, would have thought, wow, this is astonishing stuff, and these must be, superior beings, which, technologically speaking, they were, but they weren't gods. They were just folk that had been advanced further than they were. So that is a direct reflection on what we think, Dave and I, and others, happened in the dim past, in the long distant past. And our cultural artifacts, such as they are, the surviving ones, tell us about these things, right? Make no mistake. Yep. And it's not just the Bible, right? I know that the Indian book, what was it called? The Indian epic?
The Mahabharata.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Is chock-a-block full of vimanas and flying objects and something called Orichalco, which is the fuel, partially mercury. We spoke about this in other shows, and partially white gold powder, we think. But the point is that that's one. The Chinese talk about flying chariots. All the gods had their own immortality elixir. They had their flying chariots. There were wars in heaven, right? There were wars in heaven. There were wars in heaven in the Bible. There were wars in heaven all the time. The Olympian gods, Zeus and so forth, right? They had a war in heaven when they fought the Titans, their ancestors, if you will, and defeated them and become the new gods. So the Olympians were not in fact the first. No, the Titans. In fact, not even the Titans were the first because they were gods before them. Right? Another war that was fought. So we have all this warfare, and then the Norse mythology is the same. You got Thor, and you got Odin, and then you've got the mythologies of the Americas, and again, you have supernatural beings and that have that are big in stature, giants. The stories of giants, the stories of Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, the great teacher. He was white with the beard, very non-Indian looking. I'm talking about Native Americans. And you have to ask yourself, well, these are all stories. Can you dismiss them all? Can you just say, you know what? Nah, that's just all. That's a lot of crock, because that's not possible. Because I know, and because I've been taught in school, it's not possible. And I know people that science every day. And if they science every day and they have never come across anything, it can't be true, right? In fact, show it to me right now. Well, I've just did the cargo cults, right? It's a normal human. I guess it's a normal human response to an event that can't be explained. Is to give it a supernatural air, give it a supernatural dimension, right?
So Meki, let me just make this point, right? I've landed. I'm a flyboy in in a P-51. I've landed. The natives have seen me. Maybe I had engine trouble. It doesn't really matter. I've landed on the beach. They come out and witness me. I've got my skull cap on. I've got my flight glasses. I take out a cigarette and just initiate flame in my hand and light my cigarette. Now I'm breathing smoke out. This is something they don't do. Yeah, I've just arrived in a metal bird. Yeah,
yep.
They've never seen
shiny metal bird.
Shiny metal bird. They've never seen anything quite like it. All my food is in tins. I give lollies out to the kids and their eyes go wide. Eventually, more of these metal birds fly over, see me there, some land and some parachute cargo, more food and things down on me, to keep me alive because that's my crewmen.
Yep.
These people remember that. Just like, and remember the show we talked about, technology being indiscernible from magic if sufficiently sophisticated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So in that case alone, we proved that, in that show, we proved it doesn't matter the differential in technology, even if it was human-looking people. If it was so far in the future, like we thought it would happen in the 40s, we'd be wearing silver one-piece jumpsuits right now. If we landed sometime, not half the population, I'll tell you, wouldn't fit into them. If we for some reason were transported into the future, in the past, with all of this technology, even our smartphones, even though they wouldn't get a cell signal, people would be absolutely beside themselves and think we were gods.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
So the cargo cult should not be ignored as part of this when we're talking about people coming down from the sky, considered gods, because that's the only way they could describe it to themselves and justify who these people were. So at one point, Meki pointed out there was 3 different civilizations in the sky at the same time. I think it was in the Mahabharata, yeah? And then they went to war against each other when they couldn't decide upon something.
That's correct.
The Norse was the father and the sons. The sons disappointed, hated each other, did the wrong thing to each other, and the dad fixed it all up. Those things are those same points. So if we can draw likeness there, please come along for the ride.
Yes, absolutely. And look, the thing is this, guys. Whether or not the visitors, whether or not it is us, whether it's not it's co-evolution on this planet and there's another species here with us, doesn't really matter. The point really is that we've had plenty of time to develop technology or high level of advancement similar to today several times over. The conservative human timeline is 100,000 years. In fact, it's been pushed out to 200,000 years, meaning the way we are today, we may very well have been around for at least 200,000 years. Now, we think that it's been a lot longer, Dave and I, and there's some evidence to support that, or at least someone like us that has been around there for a lot longer, because we have the evidence, right? It's out there. You can look it up yourself. We've done several shows on it. The point, though, is it took us 5,000 years to get where we are, from pretty much Stone Age, right? Now, even if the human beings as we know them have only been around for 100,000 years, and we know they've been here longer, that gives us time enough for 20 civilizations like our own, assuming there's a 5,000 gap between each, 10 civilizations like our own. 10. Or, if you want to have a bigger gap between, fine, 5 civilizations like our own. That's a lot of civilizations like our own that we just don't know about, we're denying, we just don't believe exist, and in history, because we have this unfortunate Western thinking, which is all about linear progress. So, we started in the Stone Age, we were monkeys, then we became, cave dwellers, troglodytes, then we became people, and now then we started building civilization, we started building pyramids, and, the Baalbek temples, and then the Romans and the Greeks, and then the Middle Ages, and then Renaissance, and here we are, whoop-de-doo. No, well, that's all nice and linear, or seemingly so, but actual history doesn't work like that. And in fact, nature doesn't work like that. Nature doesn't work in a linear fashion. Nature works in a circular fashion, right? In a circular motion. There's a cycle. Everything's a cycle, right? Life, death, and rebirth, and so forth. It's all a cycle. You've got something that starts, and then does something. It lives, and it dies, and it starts again. There's no such thing as a linear progression, really, in nature, and we follow nature, believe it or not. We have no choice. Even our civilization, the one we're in right now, is going to end one day, and it will be forgotten. There will be no remnants left of us. In fact, less so than of civilizations that went before us, because we built in glass and steel. That will just disappear, depending on the... Yeah, that's right. Depending on the thing that's going to end us, right, which something will, there will be nothing left. The only thing that will last, believe it or not, this is going to be crazy, are the stone tools and the stone monuments that we built. Completely. They have a good chance of surviving.
The best chance out of everything.
Yeah, not much else.
If there was one thing, look, even if you consider, concrete? Yeah, concrete will last. No, not really. It has like a 20-year lifetime, and it gets harder until about
there's something called concrete cancer,
Yeah, well, concrete gets a bit harder in about half its age, and then it starts to deteriorate for the other half. So there's all concrete high rises are made with a life. Most are 30 years. So you have to consider they won't be there. Now, we mentioned this in a previous show too. If there was a glacier, it would just shear everything off at the dirt level. Done.
Yes.
That's it. There's none of the things you would imagine would remain. If you had an underground bunker, that was made of all concrete, maybe 100 years later, you might be able to, someone might be rummaging through the remains of whatever you were down there. But I can't imagine anything else that would last. Now, we're not building in stone, are we, Mekki?
Well, no, we don't. Not anymore, or at least not as we used to in the olden days. Some monuments are still built in stone, but it's just easier and cheaper. Easier and cheaper to build in concrete prefab kind of modules, as well as steel and glass. I mean, we achieved great feats of engineering. Don't get me wrong. Like we built high, very high, right? And we built across vast chasms, so we can build fantastic bridges and tunnels and so forth. So we are good engineers. Make no mistake. None of our things though are necessarily built to last, and that's the problem. So, and let's just take a step back here. So we know that catastrophes have happened in the past. We know there have been extinction level events. We know that humanity has gone through an extinction level event. What? You say that's not true? Yes, it is. You look at our mitochondrial DNA, tells us that most humans alive today have one female ancestor about 100,000 years ago.
That's right. That's called the bottleneck event, isn't it, Mekki, in Africa?
Exactly right, sir. So what does it mean? Well, it means that lots of us died, if there had been lots of us, right? About 100,000 years ago, at the very least then. There are other indications that other species have gone through a similar bottleneck event around the same time, but that's another show.
Whatever was the cause, whether it happened to be, an impact or something like that, because the Earth is littered with impacts everywhere. And it's more than likely that's the most likely cause at this time.
Yes,
for these bottlenecks, because you know when we did the flood myths, the same thing happened. We found that there were when they did the DNA, the Human Genome Project, they tried to find the oldest people that had remained in that town for generations and generations.
Yeah,
they were looking for those flood survivors. Think about it.
That's correct, sir. Exactly right. Now, guys, so what does it mean? It means that, and we've made the point in the hypothesis in our other shows as well, we are truly a species with amnesia. As a species, we have lost our memory, we have lost our cultural heritage, we have no idea what's going on. If you look at the written word and things like that, especially from lost cultures, we have no clue how to decipher it, because there is no common thread. And even today we've got hundreds of different languages, even though that's sort of dying down a bit. But the point is that once a culture is lost, it is pretty much gone unless we find some kind of tablet, like the Rosetta Stone, which
Damn
had
you ancient cartographers.
Right?
Stop making new languages. What are you, crazy?
So
it makes it too difficult to go back.
But it does, right? So unless we get a time machine and learn, go back and learn, very hard. So we are the true phoenix. You're familiar with the legend of the phoenix? It's a bird that lives for 100 years or whatever, or 1,000 years, in fact, and then burns itself. So it burns itself, destroys itself, it's reduced to ashes, and out of the ashes is reborn. Now, why is this myth there? I mean, is this truly a phoenix? Well, I don't know. I don't think so, but it's possible, I guess. But it's a multiverse. Anything is possible. But the point is, maybe it is an analogy for the human race. Maybe the human race is a phoenix. Maybe we are destroyed every now and again. Out of the ashes we rise. Dave and I brought you the show with the flood myths. There are other destructive events that the Mayans have given us. We're living in the 5th world right now. There were 4 worlds before this one, which were all destroyed in a different fashion. The one before this one right now, it was destroyed by water. That's what the Mayans said as well. This one we're living in now, will be destroyed by fire. It will be destroyed by fire, according to the Mayans. We'll see about that. The Egyptians believed that we had been reduced to nothing many times over. In fact, when Solon, a Greek guy, a Greek philosopher, visited the Egyptian priests, they told him, "Oh, Solon, you Greeks are all like children. You have legends of one flood when there have been so many, and only in Egypt is this knowledge preserved. Our monuments stand testament to the knowledge that was lost in ancient ages." So now the question is, can we believe that? Well, we believe everything else we read, so why not believe this? It is a fascinating thing to think about, though, right, Dave? I mean, what if truly we are the species with amnesia, and every 10,000 years we start from scratch? That's a possibility, right?
Yeah, it is. And when we started looking at just what do you think was causing the amnesia, the first thing that came up was some kind of cataclysm, because just imagine if it happened right now, all around the world, we, for some reason, all started no longer existing to the most part. Say we lost 98% of the population today, now.
Yep.
What would you do with the knowledge if you're the survivor? All the knowledge of this civilization, everything, all of its greatness, all its failures, everything that we'd achieved, how do you think you'd get back to it? So if the example was just a loss of electricity, you couldn't describe to anyone what that was in 15 years' time. No children having been born post-electricity loss would understand what on earth, unless you had an example, on earth what it was you were trying to describe to them. You try and describe electricity to someone. You don't know. You would presume you know how it works, but to be honest, all the things, our whole civilization, everything that runs on it, and it could then be turned into, because of this, the amnesia is, like, it wasn't really important to bring that forward from the event. Imagine what you would record, what you would pass on. Oh, there was a previous civilization. It was okay, had its faults, but the planet was covered in people, and we went to that moon thing up there in the sky, and people would scoff, right? They'd scoff at you. So, look, the most important things are this is what the sun does. It moves in a figure eight around the horizon. Throughout the year, you should be able to plot it. So make some sticks and markers and stones and plot that. Do your Stonehenge, right, Meki?
Absolutely.
Yep. Try to instill some kind of civil obedience. So you'll need to have some rules set up. You'll need to mark those off for your town. You'll need to cooperate with people. You need to start farming. When is it that you'll have to learn crop rotation all over again, unless you know it. Otherwise, your crops will end up failing. You'll have to know when the wet season ends, when the dry season ends, when is it winter. You'll have to know all this stuff, and that's the only thing that's going to be important for about how many years, Meki?
A long time.
Around about 1,000 years.
Yeah, but let's take it a step further. I mean, you actually going into a fairly advanced post-apocalyptic society there, right? Where these things are important. For the first few generations after this event, the only thing that will matter is food, water, and shelter. In fact, water, food, and shelter in that order. And every bit of knowledge that has existed, because the truth is, when people survive something like this, they're not necessarily the best equipped to survive, not necessarily, but maybe.
They won't be they won't be the architects, and they won't be the people who studied farming.
That's right. So APRANET Banker. No, I did study statistics at uni, to be honest with you. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but sorry, someone thinks math wasn't my favorite topic. I do like math. I think math is the key to the universe, but the point I'm making here is that immediately after the event, the only thing that matters is survival. So all the higher learning that we might have had will be lost, unless there's an extremely well-organized surviving community somewhere, and there very well may be, right? The bunkers maybe in Earth's orbit. Maybe some people can survive there. Maybe on a moon base, Mars stations. Maybe on other planets. Maybe we made it to other planets, right? So, but the point is, though,
maybe we made it last time.
Maybe we did, and I think we did. It becomes important to just survive. So all reading, writing, arithmetic, who cares? Can you catch a rabbit? that's important. So these are things that get lost immediately. All higher learning goes, unless there's a very well organized community that survives. And I believe that the pyramids are a representation of a whole bunch of knowledge that we have lost, and that was encoded in the pyramids a long time ago, so it won't get lost, and it'll take us a little while, learning yet, and I think we're getting there slowly to understand what it actually is the pyramid represents, or the pyramids, I should say, or other similar buildings around the world that hold a lot of knowledge, in my opinion, that the ancients tried to preserve. I mean, the problem
Mickey,
is yep.
The one thing that stood out the most with the pyramids wasn't that they were constructed well, or that they're actually eight-sided. But it was the mathematical equation that leads you to pi, wasn't it? The magic number, 3.14159. That's one of the things that's the take-home message from their pyramids. Through all of their genius and all of the things they had to overcome to build the things, that number comes out as an equation, at which you could only know what pi is if you have mathematics.
Well, correct, and fairly advanced mathematics. I mean, what good? Let's look at this for a second, right? I mean, what good is it to you to understand? I guess even simple geometry. If you're a nomad that goes hunting and gathering every day, you have no use for that. I mean, you will observe the sky, sure enough, the seasons, yes. You will track animals, so you have to be good at that. You have to be good at hunting. Mathematics? well, it actually is not going to do anything for you. It'll only become interesting once you start building a civilization. Maybe you start settling down. You start building Stonehenge to observe the seasons. Maybe you need that because you're now sedentary. You now start to farm and build a city and whatever the case may be. At that point, more sophisticated science becomes necessary and something that can actually be undertaken. I mean, if you look at ancient Greece, everybody talks about ancient Greece. Ancient Greeks had very sophisticated city-states. Okay, they didn't just spring up out of nowhere. They developed over hundreds and thousands of years very, very sophisticated systems of law. They had very advanced irrigation and city plumbing. The Romans, in fact, had that as well, or more so. So people had time. People had to spend on other pursuits, other than survival. They had time to think. They had time to
philosophy,
build.
art,
yeah, exactly.
mathematics.
Now,
we started getting really smart again.
Correct. That's exactly right.
But it was
again, but
Mecky's right with the time. There was time available.
Yeah, that's what it is, guys. It's time. So sorry, we don't want to get stuck too much on this, but you need to understand. You need to understand that there was enough time. There was enough time. Even with the conservative estimation of 200,000 years these days, right, of Homo sapiens sapiens, there was enough time for several high cultures, similar, not the same, similar to our own, to have existed in the past. We know that there are maps out there that shouldn't exist. We know there are buildings out there that shouldn't exist. We know there are technical or technological artifacts that shouldn't exist. We know there are stories that shouldn't exist. And only now do the fairy tales of the East and even our own fairy tales become something that is actually a possibility.
And
Open
these are the
sesame
messages from the past coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. Flying machines. I mean, when the Westerners first went to India or into the Middle East for Arabian Nights, those tales, and they first translated it. Of course, they're fairy tales, right? But with our new technological eyes that we have today, we reread those stories, and I urge you to do so. All the fairy tales and the epics, reread them, knowing what you know now. Read them as though you didn't know it's some kind of ancient epic text. But I mean, we're going to talk a little bit later about the Mahabharata and what it says in there, and the extremely accurate descriptions of weapons of mass destruction, to take a Bushism here. Now, Dave, there are a number of candidates whose names have survived that could be ancient high-tech or civilizations or have been interfered with, right? There are quite a number of them.
Yeah, there are. And look, some of these, you'll know some. Hopefully you know all of them. But if you don't, then you can get a pen ready. We all know of Atlantis. Now, Atlantis is still presumed to be in the Atlantic, but it's I think the jury's still out on that. Certainly, these are certainly candidates for high ancient tech. Lemur? Is it Lemuria in the Pacific? Yep. Mu in the Pacific as well. It's another ancient site. It's a city, the great city of Mu. Asgard in the north. Is that the Norse rules, Mecky? Up in the north?
That's
Valhalla,
correct.
of course.
Absolutely.
Yep. Hyperborea, well, that's in the far north. And Agartha, that's the Hollow Earth connection.
Correct, sir.
Do you know, these are, like, Mecky, these are the things, and there's still rumour around each one of these, but there are connections to
absolutely
to each one of these. Now, Mecky, would you like to elaborate a little further?
Look, the thing is, what you have with all of these mythological places, right? They all are either referring to a very high-end technological civilization like Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, and so forth, or they're a high place. They're a very high place. Asgard, Valhalla. You also have Agartha and Shambhala and Shangri-La. I sort of lump into that as well, because I think they're like shadows of memories of what we have once known and forgotten. Agartha, the Hollow Earth. Well, you know what? I mean, we know there are vast caverns or cave systems in the Earth. We know this for a fact. They are massive, right? And the deepest we've gone is 12 kilometers, which is not very deep at all. So we don't really know what's inside the Earth. But what we do know is that underground civilizations have a much better chance of surviving any cataclysm that happens on the. I mean, we just surface dwellers, right? We are like
skin.
yeah, that's right. We're like the microbes that live on the skin rather than inside, where it's safe and warm and relatively stable.
Mm-hmm.
So and not only that though, right? All these civilizations had their gods and the way they interacted, fighting with each other. They all seem to be connected, right? The stories are very similar. That's what I'm trying to get to you guys with. And we've spoken about the similarities in mythologies in previous shows. We might refresh you on that as well. But because they are so similar, we can assume, we can make an assumption that there may be a common thread going through them. And they were all destroyed. More or less, right? Not so much Agartha. Go on. Yep.
In a new post-apocalyptic era, we might refer to, like Nostradamus does, the new city. That might be a place where people recall, given the amount of people that live there, there might be a high possibility that we have, survivors. Certainly, anyone, in Australia, if we would remember a great deal of the amount of cities in the world, and we would have tales about them. Yeah, New York was huge. That was like the center of the current civilization. But we had, before then there was, Rome, and they'll go looking for these places if they still exist. Might not know how to find them. Yep,
absolutely. And guys, and this is what we brought to you last time. We're going to bring to you again. It's like a tinfoil hat zone happening here. So put your tinfoil hat on, and I do warn you to keep your hands and feet inside your vehicle at all times, because we will not be responsible for any brain malfunction you might experience if you
flash
try.
Photography.
No flash photography. Now you're familiar with the asteroid belt.
Oh yes,
obviously. Yep, and according to the Titus Bode law, which we've discussed with you at length, it actually is a fairly accurate mathematical formula, which predicts the position of the planet, or the planets within the solar system, quite accurately, in fact. And where the asteroid belt is today should, according to the Titus Bode law, be a planet. Now, is it possible that maybe there was a planet, in fact, and it was destroyed as part of a gigantic intersolar war? Yes, I think it is possible. I mean, we still see the scars on Mars, I think. We can see the scars on our planet. We have an atmosphere, so the scars on our planet are somewhat eroded. Mm-hmm. But you can see the impacts and the massive fissures that were created on Mars as well as on Earth and other planets, in fact. And so there are certain indications that, yes, it's possible that maybe this was a planet which was destroyed. And Dave, you wanted to talk about Ceres, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's right. So the asteroid belt itself has also been said by NASA, as well as the Sumerians. Funny that they matched that story after they went to war in Iraq. Just a connection there. That in fact that it was a moon of Nibiru hit the early Earth, and the asteroid belt was made as a result of the collision, and the Earth changed its position from where it was down to where it is. That's been postulated, but some evidence has come to light recently of the largest and most round object in the asteroid belt past Mars is known as Ceres. It is a large rocky body, and when they were looking at it through the Herschel telescope, they discovered that every once in a while, not as predictably as they thought possible, but they would see plumes of water vapor. Because you can check out what it is you're looking at by the reflected light going through a prism, and it breaks up into its constituent components, and you can tell that, yes, that is actually water I'm looking at. And what's really weird is, that Ceres is considered a dwarf planet because it's not as big as a normal planet, but it's bigger than an asteroid, and it's the largest thing in the asteroid belt, and it has, this is something really interesting, Mekki, it's got more fresh water on it than we do have on Earth.
Right. Well, that's actually surprising, to be honest.
So it doesn't, nothing else does. there in the asteroid belt, but maybe that's the largest piece that was left over.
Exactly.
Where the water was when it froze, when it
Yep.
lost its atmosphere, when it became as cold as the surrounding space. So, yeah, and to be honest, the lines are becoming more and more blurred with the distinction between comets and asteroids now. They used to think that that comets were just icy, dirty snowballs, and that asteroids were rocks. But now, inside the core of the comet, it could very well be just a rock, and it just gets coated in water.
Yes.
So this is pretty cool. And that was the quote that I just quoted then was from I suppose a physicist working at Jet Propulsion Laboratories. So what I have to say, Mekki, this kind of information, we're seeing like the most prolific amount of data coming out now.
Ooh, that's the music, sir. Don't
It
go
sure
away,
is.
guys.
We're seeing so much info coming out from JPL and NASA about our pre-life solar system. And look, hold your breaths. Not literally. We'll see you in a few minutes after this break.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio. Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat masses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. The shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
crazy and everybody hates me and I'm suffering. Yeah, it's a free my love that I come. Blow my trigger and I come undone. Free my love that I come. Hold my trigger and I come undone. Free my let it go. Won't you pound that trigger and I come undone. It's a free my love that I come. Hold my trigger and I come undone.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me, Ivy West, for Voices on the Wind, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Studio A. I discuss government, health, metaphysics, suppressed science, universal mysteries, little-known incredible facts, alternative energies, and even more than you can imagine. Won't you join us on Revolution Radio Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Voices on the Wind with me, Ivy West.
There are lives in the balance, people under fire, children at the cannons. There are
Because if your head's in the sand, your tail is a target.
He wants a challenge. Let's give him one.
The voice that whispers in your ears are the screams that you fear. The mind you cannot defy is the heart that rules mankind. The people who made you are the gods that will save you. And I am Steve Travesty. I am the voice. The ghost in the machine. Ghost in the Machine, Tuesdays, 8 p.m., Studio A.
Right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with Dave and Mecky Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. Since it is listener-funded radio, if you like what you hear, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button on the site support page. It's left in the chat. Your donation is greatly appreciated and helps run the station. I'd like to say hello to all the new listeners. It's always good to have new people on board. And I mentioned last week that I've made a Shiny Side Out app. So why don't you get on, if you've got an Android platform, you should be able to find that in the Play Store. Add it and tell me what you think of it. You can listen to the station anytime you like. It's not, it's not just for us. That is pretty cool, all right? Let's go with that. This is show number 106, Ancient Mysteries Revisited. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of info here. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly through as much as we can, and without missing anything important. So, Mecky,
right, where were we?
Well, I think where we could start was the the still existing remnants. We talk about the ones we couldn't find.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah, look, they are, and look, guys, the number of them, right? Again, Shangri-La, Shambhala, they were things the Nazis looked for. We've spoken about this before as well. Look at the other shows, movies like Indiana Jones. While largely entertaining, do have a kernel of truth. The Nazis did really go after all those artifacts, and they were looking for all those ancient sites. They were looking for something, I can tell you that. And that included Shangri-La. I believe they actually found something, but that's just my opinion. Then there's the Siberian installation.
I love this one.
Before the break, yeah, it's great, isn't it, Dave? I mean, before the break, I posted in a link to the story, story itself, and to the interview with Valery Uvarov, whom I saw at Nexus conference some years ago, and who is in fact the guy, and Duncan brought him out to Australia, which was brilliant. He's the guy that studied this mystery, if you will. Now, what is this installation? It's
domes, metallic domes.
Yeah, in the middle of Siberia, in fact, right? And essentially, what Uvarov says, we should look for the site of the Tunguska explosion, and to the southeast is the very large and famous lake Baikal. It's a very large lake. Beyond that, to the north, is a huge and barren territory covering 100,000 kilometers. Hardly anybody lives there. That's why nobody was killed when the Tunguska explosion happened.
That's true.
There are no towns or cities, and that is where the installation is located. In fact, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, the installation itself. When people found these metallic domes that the locals had all spoken about, the team that went there felt ill after about an hour. They couldn't. One of them had to lie down, became disorientated. It seems as though there's something there, and it's an energy of some sort. Now,
yes, it's some kind of ball lightning. They think it is, but anyway, yeah.
The installation is said by the locals, and in the remaining reasons for its existence is that it saves the Earth from impact from time to time. We don't know what it is, to be honest.
Nope. We do believe, a number of people that have looked at this phenomenon believe that the installation protects the Earth from incoming debris or even incoming attacks. Now, I don't know if you guys are all up with your YouTube, guys, but if you aren't, Dave has got some amazing clips, and if you look for it long enough, you can find them yourself as well, of what appear to be battles in our atmosphere. I know, tinfoil hat time, yeah, I get it, but it's video evidence, right? You can argue with it if you like, and unless someone is time that fake is not supporting it. The point is that there seem to be these battles sometimes entering as well, and
it looks like we're having a little bit of audio trouble with Meki, so there we go.
How's that?
It's much better.
Not very well. My apologies. So my point was that there are battle space in our atmosphere and just beyond that have been captured on film, and it seems the installation interferes in that as well. So it will attack anything or destroy anything that enters our lower atmosphere and poses a threat to us. And the most recent event was when we had the meteor impact in Russia. I don't know if you remember that. There was a big... Right, and there were sources that saw the installation come to life and, in fact, destroy the largest bodies at that point and broke it into fragments, so there wouldn't be any further damage on the ground. So that's one. Of course, the pyramids are another. I don't think you have to argue. You can argue with that. A massive piece of evidence, as far as engineering is concerned, is the temple complex in Baalbek, which is now
Oh, we're just not having much luck with Meki's link today. I don't know what it is.
There we are.
That's much better.
Ha! Sorry, guys. Seems to be not too good today. Now, I was talking about the Jupiter in Baalbek, which has three 1,000-ton blocks, not at the ground level of the complex, but no, lifted up from the ground that form part of the platform. Why on earth do you need 3 1,000 ton blocks in your construction. Well, I don't know, but that's what they did. And they're not just on the ground, they had to be lifted up. And I'm talking about 1,000 ton stone blocks, okay? They're huge. So there's evidence for that there. The pyramids are, as I mentioned, are clear evidence for the most highly sophisticated engineering and building capability, even to some extent higher than what we can accomplish today. There are other installations as well. We found some installations off the coast of Japan, large monolithic blocks which seem to have formed some kind of harbor. We seem to have found a bridge connecting Sri Lanka or Ceylon with mainland India. We have found various underwater installations off the coast of the Bahamas, of America, and the list goes on and on. There's also some evidence, certainly correct, so the road that just goes into the water. Where to? We don't know. Also installations on the moon and on Mars, in fact.
Yep, exactly.
And this is where it gets really crazy. we had a whole number of shows about this. The moon. Dave, tell me about the moon.
Well, there are a lot of things that are unusual about the moon. You know, just to be honest with you, there are. I wanted to point out, Meki. I'm not sure where we're at currently, but there was I think there was a link a bit further on, which had the moon in it. But
hang on, I will post it. In fact, it's right at the end. And I'm jumping. I'm so
I know
sorry.
you're jumping all over the place on me. What are you doing?
Here you go.
Hey, what's this? Crest the Clown joke? We discussed this, and I said no. Yeah. So David Hatcher Childress has a tremendous site where he discusses the things that you never knew about the moon. You know, the moon's origin. There's so many different theories about it, and yet it seems oddly, and this is one of your favourites, Becky, to be honest. The age of the moon, it seems older than the Earth, but
it is. In fact, it is. Yep.
It is, but I think it was in Greek, in the Greek mythology, it wasn't there originally.
There are a number of peoples, and you're right, there was Greek mythology which spoke of them as having existed since before the time of the moon. So the pre-lunans, if you will, the pre-lunar society, which again, if you stretch, and this is what we do in this show, we stretch, could indicate that the moon was not there at one point, potentially, which would make life very, very different on this planet, by the way, very, very different.
Because we wouldn't have the seasons. And the tides, and
no seasons, no tides. There'd be a whole bunch of stuff we wouldn't have, right?
So the Earth itself wouldn't rotate so uniformly as well. It'd be all over the place.
That's correct. So can we then make the inference? Can we stretch as far and say that maybe the largest, physically biggest potential ancient artifact might in fact be the moon? Can we say, and we've said it before, that the moon was in fact built? There are too many things about the moon which are odd.
It rang
not
like a bell,
to look at it. Yes, sir. When NASA hit it twice on purpose, it crashed. In fact, the craft into it twice, and the moon rang like a bell. Meaning, it is a hollowed-out structure, or at the very least, there are very massive caverns within it. And that's really very strange. It also is home to the deepest crater, or the deepest hole in the solar system on the dark side, which is, can't really see. And it is exactly 400 times smaller than the sun, and exactly 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun is. What does it mean? Well, if it wasn't exactly that, we would not have solar eclipses.
If it was further away, if it was further away, we just see a dark spot go across the sun, and the sun would always be fully illuminating the Earth. And if it was closer, then we wouldn't get any of the prominence from the sun. During it, we wouldn't get the ring. And also, they say there's also rust-proof iron on there, Meki, and
yes,
there are there's high radioactivity there as well. It doesn't make any sense. The soil is older than the rock. There's so much stuff about the moon. It's just extraordinary. But there's also water on it.
Yes, we've seen plumes of water, and if you followed our show, you know we looked at the Clementine mission pictures as well, right? Showing the moon in quite different color to what we are used to seeing it. So the moon is a very mysterious object. It's a unique object in the solar system in that there's no other planet that has a similar relationship with any of its moons. The size differential, yeah, absolutely. The size differential between the Earth and Moon is odd, right? It's by far the largest moon in comparison to the attendant planet. It is also the rotational speed of the moon is odd, so that one side is always facing us. One side is always facing us, and one side is always facing away.
Did you know,
so
Mekki?
That's very strange.
Yeah. Did you know, Mekki, that like the face that we see, the side of, sorry, I shouldn't say the face, but the side of the moon we see, obviously we never see the other side from Earth, from our perspective, but there's a weird gravitational force that when you orbit the moon, you dip towards it, and then you go back out again.
Yep.
So there's a weird gravitational energy, and maybe that's what's holding on to the Earth to prevent the moon from rotating.
It
could
possible.
very well be like a tractor beam.
Yes. Now, again, yes, I have to agree with that because, it doesn't make any sense. In fact, the funny thing about the moon's gravitational field is that initially it was miscalculated by NASA. So as you go from one planetary object or space object to another, you're actually trying to escape the gravitational well, right? So getting away from the Earth takes a lot of power. But at one point of the journey, you start falling towards the other object. So at one point, the gravitational well of the Earth will release you, and you're now falling into the well of the moon. The calculation was off by quite a large factor, meaning, of course, that they had miscalculated the density of the moon, which they had thought to be similar to Earth's. But it's not. It's less. And the gravity is, I think, 1/6, or if I'm not mistaken, or 1/5 of the Earth's gravity. So there's a lot of things about the moon which are odd, and they all point to a hollowness of the moon, an artificial construct, potentially. Maybe the largest thing that was ever built in this solar system, if we can believe that. And if you think about what we just spoke about earlier about the asteroid belt, and any civilization or technology that can destroy a planet, would, in my opinion, have very little difficulty building a moon.
True.
Yeah. From a conceptual point of view, I mean, because at that point the technology would be so far beyond what we do today that any intelligent discussion would not be possible.
Look, these are all the things that, Mekki, I wanted to say something to you. I wanted to greet you in an old, forgotten language. Yeah. Oh, yep. I wanted to say, Silim. Selim, which is Sumerian for hello.
Right.
You don't know where I'm going, do you, Mekki?
I know exactly where you're going,
awesome.
But I want you to go there.
Oh, right. Well, maybe I'll reserve the hello for later, since I don't know where you are.
No, go. I like it.
Oh, okay. Well, there are texts going back a long way. And did you want to do this now, or a bit later?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, sir, definitely.
All right.
So this is we're talking to you guys about the textual evidence, right? So we've talked about some physical evidence. Now we're going to talk to you about the evidence that has come to us in the form of stories, books, and manuscripts, and so forth.
Exactly. So one of the famous, or the most famous of them, is, and like we've spoken a little about the Mahabharata, but also there's the Sumerian text, the Sanskrit text. It's
cuneiform.
It's cuneiform text. I'm sorry, cuneiform text, and also the method and production of those, and the reproduction skills that they seemingly created. But the text itself is possibly the oldest version of what is today known as the Bible, in that it contains a lot of biblical stories, but they are their original versions of them. You can, by seeing what they say, the Sumerian text, you can easily determine, oh, that's clearly the story of the flood, and that's the but what's weird is the term God in it. Now, everyone tinfoil hats on, right? Firmly pulled down. Is that they don't say God. These are the people from the heavens came. These are the people, the Anunnaki, the people they describe, who came here to teach them everything that they knew about society, mathematics, construction, farming. Everything that we know today to be civilization is written down in these texts, and also creationism, how man was created. It's all there in the text. And if you read the Bible, if you like I'm not going to say stories, but I'm not being rude if I do. If you like what's written in the Bible, I implore you to discover what the Sumerian texts have to say, because basically the references for gods are just these people that came down. I mean, I say people, Mackie. They're not they're not gods.
Yep.
They are just people with more technology.
Yep.
So, tell us some of the things, Mackie.
Well, yep. Look, we went actually to the cuneiform texts themselves at the university site, right? So you can actually read them yourself. So what we're reading to you has been translated, and this is what's been translated, and not by Zacharias Stitchin, but by the I guess the scholarly accepted guys. The actual
peer
institutes.
reviewed.
Peer reviewed and all that. So this is not in dispute. So. These are quotations I'm going to share with you. Men used to eat grass with their mouths like sheep. In those times, they did not grow grain, barley, or flax, and brought these down from the interior of heaven, referring to the Anunnaki, or the godlike beings. And now this is a fragmented piece. Sets up, I will, the perishing of my mankind. For Ninto, I will stop the annihilation of my creatures, and I will return the people from their dwelling grounds. Let them build many cities, so that I can refresh myself in their shade. Let them lay the bricks of many cities in pure places. Let them establish places of divination in pure places. And when the fire quenching is arranged, the divine rights and exalted powers are perfected, and the earth is irrigated. I will establish well-being there. Now comes the important bit. After, and this is, I'm just reading it, this is no racial commentary or anything. After An, Enlil, Enki, and Ninharsag had fashioned the black-headed people, they also made animals multiply everywhere, and made herds of four-legged animals exist on the plains as is befitting. And it goes on. The great gods created the structure of Unuk, the handiwork of the gods, and of Iana, the house lowered down from heaven. Okay, you must watch over the great rampart. It's a great rampart, a cloud bank resting on the earth, the majestic residence which An established. Enki answered An and Enlil, in those days, in those distant days, in those nights, in those distant nights, in those years, in those distant years, they like to repeat themselves, after the assembly had made the floods, this is my repetition now, after the assembly had made the floods sweep over to destroy the seed of mankind. What assembly? Anyway, among us, I was the only one who was for life. I was the only one
he
who was for life.
At
so that was
council.
Enki.
That's what it
For
looks
us.
like. He argued for us at the council, saying, "Don't kill them all." And the council
That's correct.
the assembly
That's-
overwhelmingly voted against him to destroy mankind.
Yeah. He remained alive, Ziut Zura alone, although a human being remained alive. So he must have saved him, Ziut Zura, maybe the Babylonian Noah. Anyway, then you made me swear, this is still Enki, then you made me swear by heaven and by earth, and I swore that no human will be allowed to live forever anymore.
Yes.
Now, as we look at Gilgamesh, could not he escape because of his mother? Now, you should know this. Gilgamesh's mother was, in fact, a goddess from the Babylonian pantheon. So these are texts that have been translated. Now you can say, oh, well, this is all just, hocus pocus, and humbug
Hang on,
and whatnot,
Becky.
fantasy.
Not our audience. Listen.
Well, no.
No,
Not our
and
audience.
I think I know where you're going with this. You've heard that they have modified humans to no longer live forever.
Yep, no longer.
Very important.
Yes, absolutely. Look, and this is the thing, right? So there was a council that decided that there should be a flood that destroys the seed of mankind. And only Enki argued for us, which is fascinating. So maybe it was Enki, or the god of the Bible, that then gave Noah the instructions to build the ark, and maybe it was this Ziud Zura that was given the instructions on how to survive. Now, be that as it may, this can be looked up for yourselves. These tablets have been translated. It's publicly available. I've pasted the link in. You can have a look yourselves. And this is fascinating stuff. I think it's this even without any interpretation. I mean, you see here. This text much predates the Old Testament. So even from that point of view, you understand that this is the source for the Old Testament stories that we are left with today. In fact, very different personages involved here as opposed to the protagonists of the Bible. So it's very, 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 very old stuff we're talking about here. And this is only one flood myth from one area of the world where there are so many, and they were so convincing, not because of the similarities, but because of their differences. I urge you to listen to our show on the flood myths. It was the show that generated 100 pages of show notes, nothing we have ever done since or before. Because the sheer volume, it was the sheer volume of it. And I guess if we had dug further, we could have gone and gotten more. Now, Dave spoke about other texts, and there was the Mahabharata, which is the ancient Indian or Hindu epic, and this was written in Sanskrit, and that talks about warfare. That sounds a lot like modern atomic warfare, and in fact, Oppenheimer, you might be familiar with him. He's the father of the modern atomic bomb. Said this at the Manhattan test. He said this. This is what he said. "I have become death, destroyer of worlds." And that's a direct quote, in fact, from the Mahabharata. Obviously, he was aware of the text. Not surprising, again, because he was from Germany, and the Nazis were very, 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 very much up on their ancient history. And I'm not surprised at all that he was familiar with the Mahabharata, because Hitler, as I said, was looking for ancient tech all over the planet, and he may have found it, is my opinion. But Dave, there are Vimanas that are talked about, and I understand there are some descriptions in the Mahabharata of those Vimanas as well.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to handle these names correctly. So is that Gurkha?
Beautiful.
Gurkha flying in his swift and powerful Vimana, hurled against the three cities of the Vrishis and
Vrishis, perfect.
Yep, good man, and and Hakas, a single projectile charged with all of the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and fire as brilliant as 10,000 suns rose in all its splendor. It was the unknown weapon, the Iron Thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death which reduced to ashes the entire race of the Vrishnis and Hakas. Now,
Yes,
I have to say that this event, the event that's written in the Mahabharata, is something else. Now, this is that, like I said in the opening of the show, this is one of those things that you would take with you. You would write this stuff down for more people later on. Go ahead, Mac.
Yep, so there's the Vaimanika Sastra, and that's perhaps the most ancient text on the Vimanas that's known to exist. And it was first reported to have been found in 1918 in the Baroda Royal Sanskrit Library. Now, Baroda is located north of Bombay, and no earlier copies have been reported. However, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, in his comprehensive treatise on the Rig Veda dated 1875, references the Vaimanik Sastra in his commentary, as well as other manuscripts on the Vimanas. The Vaimanika Sastra refers to 97 past works on authorities, of which at least 20 works deal with the mechanism of aerial flying machines, but none of these works are now traceable. So we're looking at the text here, which is the Vaimanika Sastra, which references back, like any good engineering textbook would do, to other published papers and authorities in discussing the Vimanas. Now, if it was a work of fiction, if it was just made up, I don't think, now this is just my opinion, right? Dave, be with me here. If it was just a work of fiction, I don't think I would reference other fairy tales necessarily, right? To describe the mechanism. And 20 of those 97 purely deal with how it actually flies, right? This is not the story of battles and so forth. These are very dry technical texts, okay? Now, in this book are described in 8 captivating chapters the arts of manufacturing various types of aeroplanes of smooth and comfortable travel in the sky as a unifying force for the universe, contributive to the well-being of mankind. That which can go by its own force like a bird on earth or water or air is called Vimana. So a self-propelled vehicle, and it seems here not just flying object, but probably submerged as well, and potentially hovering or otherwise driving on the earth. Now, this ancient manuscript claims to give 1. The secret of constructing aeroplanes which will not break, which cannot be cut, will not catch fire, and cannot be destroyed.
Do you know what, Mackie? That sounds a lot like what Mac Brazel described the material was made out of from the crashed pieces of the Roswell crash debris.
Correct, sir. Now,
He said those words, Mackie.
Yeah. So see, we need to draw the line here, right, Dave? I mean, we're talking about ancient technology, right? Which in the olden times we believed were fairy tales, and to the very latest in our, let's call it contact experiences, describing that very same technology. Now, there are 2 things here. Number 1, it could be a civilization that has reached its zenith and is now on the decline, or just simply doesn't progress any further, or some kind of time travel might be even involved, or dimensional travel, because you would expect some kind of progression in 5,000 years. But because you're right, Dave, Mac Brazel describes exactly that, right? And maybe that is the pinnacle of this particular material. Maybe you can't improve it any further. The ancient manuscript also claims to give the secret of making planes motionless. All right.
Wow, that's
the secret of making. Yeah, exactly. A secret of making planes invisible, stealth, technology. The secret of hearing conversations and other sounds in enemy planes. We have directional microphones today, but it's very difficult to do it in another plane, right? So anyway, so there we are. The secret of receiving photographs. I mean, they talk about photographs here, right? Of the interior of enemy planes. Photographs in an ancient text. Yeah, okay. The secret of ascertaining the direction of the enemy's plane's approach. Radar, sonar,
right.
something, right?
Yep.
The secret of making persons in enemy planes lose consciousness. Whoa, we can do that today. We do it with sonic weaponry. And the secret of destroying enemy planes. Correct, sir, right?
Or directed, I think they're called directed energy weapons, yeah.
100%. So this is crazy stuff, right? So, now, this is when
Mackie, if I had read you this, except for the first one, but if I'd read you this, like 30 years ago, none of this would make sense.
Well,
it's all phooey. Yeah,
it's like, no train will ever go faster than 60 miles an hour, right?
That's right, because you suffocate, I know.
That's right. but this is the problem, guys, because only now we're catching up, and we said this before, only now is our understanding catching up with what is in fact written in those ancient manuscripts. And I will say this. Only in the future will we fully understand the nature of the pyramids, will we fully understand the nature of the moon, because our technology has not quite caught up yet to what we're looking at. All right, it is that simple. Because we're still just children, playing with dangerous toys, thinking we're all that, whereas we hardly scratched the
technological surface. Really, we haven't.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Mackie, when you have a look back, are we no different than, honestly, to be honest, right? Just how little different, even worse, I would have to say, in some cases, are we from the middle like, I don't know, maybe the 15th century. Are
Yeah.
we really
Oh, see-
are we really personally on a better level? I actually think maybe
Actually-
ancient Rome or ancient Greece was better.
You're correct, and in fact, you mentioned the 15th century there, which is very pertinent because that was the Renaissance, right? So,
That's right.
So we had just ended 1,000 years of church rule, which saw the Crusades, which saw heretics burned, which saw the Inquisition, which saw extreme oppression of any kind of knowledge within Europe, especially. And then the Renaissance started, and there was a bloom. There was a new bloom of civilization, if you will. There was new thoughts, maybe even ancient thoughts that found their way back into Europe, and inspired what we now call the Renaissance. You know, rebirth is what it really means.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you could somehow make those 1,000 years of darkness go away, you know, the Dark Ages, and go back to the ancient Greeks. Everything that they had, their thoughts, their philosophies, their mathematics, you know, even their know-how and engineering, and the Romans certainly had a lot of engineering, and if that had continued without the interruption of those 1,000 years, we would be in a very different place today, Dave. We would be in a very, very different place, in fact.
Yeah,
right?
if you extrapolate, you know, those good times where knowledge was power, knowledge and creating things was power, and you know, imagination. I think, yeah, you're right. We'd be in a much better place. Hey, so Mekki, you know, that the India of 15,000 years ago, it's we're a long way from that, right?
Look, sir, correct. Now, this is purely speculation we're going to share with you, right? This is, but I think it's educated speculation. So, as Dave said, the India of 15,000 years ago, we believe, and other researchers believe, was known as the Rama Empire, a land again that we believe was contemporary, contemporary with Atlantis. A huge wealth of text still exists in India that testify to the extremely advanced civilization that is said to have existed back even as far as 26,000 years ago. I know these are terribly long times, and we're not really equipped to think like that, because in school you would have learned, that's actually the Stone Age, right? In fact, it's pre-Stone Age, and nothing happened. A few people, rooting around finding nuts and berries.
And not so. You, man, I was flying the Vimana. But Mekki, if you have a look at the other shows we've done, 12,500 years ago, there was a cataclysm. Yes. It makes sense.
Look, it does, and there's some ancient sites here, and there's a lot of work that was done by other scholars and other researchers like Graham Hancock and Robert Boval, who have shown that the pyramid complex as well as the Sphinx are actually aligned to the constellation of Leo. Makes sense because as I said I'll say it again, the Sphinx is recarved, gentlemen, and ladies. The Sphinx is not anatomically correct. The head is way too small, so it was probably a lion's head, and was probably
a lion's head,
pointing to the constellation of Leo, and Leo was at that point 12.5 to 15,000 years ago, and not since then, and not for a little while yet.
Because of the precession of the Earth, that's right.
Correct. That's correct. So the zodiac actually moves around like a gigantic clock in the heavens, and it was pointing. So we can infer that the at least the Sphinx complex is at least 15,000 years old, right? And some cataclysm, yes, absolutely, must have come along. I mean, we have given you evidence after speculation as well, of course, that something did happen. The flood myths are too prevailing. I mean, there's just too much of that going on in the world to just ignore it. The physical evidence.
Which was backed up also in December with the impact crater off India.
Yes, exactly, right? And not only that, but there are these massive fields of bones in Siberia especially, like where they found mammoths frozen with buttercups still in their mouth, which means at one point the Siberian steppes must have been a very moderate climate, so something happened instantaneously that snap froze them. In fact, you can still eat the meat. That's right. So something happened. Something happened. Anyway, so it appears that terrible wars and subsequent earth changes destroyed these civilizations, leaving only isolated pockets of survivors and learning and civilization and so forth. The devastating wars of the Ramayana, and particularly of the Mahabharata, are said to have been the culmination of the terrible wars of the last Kali Yuga, the last age of Kali, the age of destruction, the age of renewal, in fact, as well. Kali is not just a goddess of destruction and death, but also of renewal. You also have to remember there's two sides to every coin. In order for life, there needs to be death, and that's how the ancients viewed the world as well. Now, the dating process is difficult, and we've discussed this with you, right? And there's no exact way to date the yugas, because there are cycles within cycles and yugas within yugas. A greater yuga cycle is said to be at least 6,000 years long, while a smaller yuga cycle is only 360 years. And that was according to a theory by Dr. Kunwarlal Jain Vyas. Okay, now his papers said that Rama belongs to the 24th small yuga cycle, and that there's an interval of 71 cycles between Manu and the Mahabharata period, which comes out to be, after you do the calcs, to about 26,000 years. Right? So this was based on the work by Dr. Kunwarlal Jain Vyas. Okay, the Indian epics pick up the thread of the tale of this devastation and destruction. Now, Atlantis, rather displeased at its humiliating defeat, deceived that they were no longer interested in subjugating the Roman Empire, so they pretended, and decided instead to annihilate the major cities using weapons of mass destruction. Modern Sanskrit scholars could not comprehend what was being described in these epics until the dropping of the first atomic bombs on Japan.
Remember, the scholars didn't understand that those weapons existed until they didn't see the testing. They saw nothing. It was the dropping of them that triggered it. So, for me, Meki, it's that kind of thing. So, until it's in we have a context to place the object, the thing we're looking at, like, I'm just going to throw it out there, like the Abydos helicopter, that had originally thought that the images, when they found them, were just depicting, pretty much stylized insects or whatever. And they said maybe multiple carvings, which didn't make sense. But really depicting a helicopter, it looks like a Black Hawk-styled one, and an offshore luxury boat. When they found them, they had no clue what they were because we didn't have them. The moment we had them, you have an instantaneous idea that that's what it's being depicted. It's not iffy. It's an exact match. And so this is the thing. When you're translating something, you can only do it from your perspective. What's the term, Meki? When it's the context of the items being described, otherwise it would be magic.
Yeah, that's right. It's your cultural reference, that will give you a context. I mean, nothing else can. I mean, it has to be magic because you can't explain it, right? That's absolutely correct, sir. And it didn't make any sense, and this is really important for you to understand, and because we have not yet quite reached the end of our understanding, right? So something that we read somewhere, or something that is being told to us, or whatever, may not make any sense with the current level of understanding that we have right now. So we shouldn't.
So, Meki, what were the bodies like? But how could we, in the text, how do we know?
Look, this is great stuff. These are authentic verses from the Indian epics, right? These are just quotes, right? I'm going to share with you, and so a Gurkha, flying a swift and powerful Vimana, hurled a single projectile charged with the power of the universe. An incandescent column, and Dave actually shared this with you earlier, of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns rose with all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death, which reduced to ashes the entire race of the Vrishnis and the Andakas. The corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. Hair and nails fell out. Pottery broke without apparent cause, and the birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. To escape from this fire, the soldiers threw themselves in streams to wash themselves and their equipment. And this is from the Mahabharata. It was a weapon so powerful that it could destroy the earth in an instant. A great soaring sound in smoke and flames, and on it sits death. This is from the Ramayana. Dense arrows of flame, like a great shower, issued forth upon creation, encompassing the enemy. A thick gloom swiftly settled upon the Pandava hosts, the enemy. All points of the compass were lost in darkness. Fierce wind began to blow upward, showering dust and gravel. Birds croaked madly. The very elements seemed disturbed. The earth shook, scorched by the terrible violent heat of this weapon. Elephants burst into flame and ran to and fro in a frenzy.
Exactly
Over
like
vast...
exactly like the pigs in those
Yes.
wooden things during the testing phase.
Correct, sir. Over a vast area, other animals crumpled to the ground and died. From all points of the compass, the arrows of flame rained continuously and fiercely. Right now, guys, this reminds me a lot of Lot's wife, who turned around despite advice to the contrary. Don't look back. And during the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, whilst fleeing the cities, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
The pillar of salt and all that.
The thing is that Lot and his daughters survived, but it's
Yes.
also said that 2 angels visited Lot the night before to warn of the destruction. 2 angels,
Yep.
Mickey.
Yes,
So 2.
absolutely. They came to warn him to get the one righteous man out, right? It's a bit of favoritism.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And this is sort of half a quote, but this she saw God descend. This is from from Judaism. She saw, this is talking about Lot's wife. She saw God descend in order to rain fire and brimstone upon the cities.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll talk about this very soon. That it is a lot. Now, as she was walking away, she turned back, and at the brightness turned her to a pillar of salt, and she had all sorts of issues.
Yes, she not well.
It's said that the reason why she was turned to salt was like the reasoning behind the angel's decision to do that to her was that she was recalling the city in all its splendor and what it had to offer, and she couldn't let it go. That's the inference behind her turning around. The other one is that she was, in fact, looking to make sure that the boyfriends of her daughters were either coming or not, or whether they were alive. She was concerned. So there's 2 different edges on that sword.
Absolutely. You also have the stories of ancient Chinese flying chariots. Again, flying chariots, right? The idea of a flying chariot airship, usually drawn by dragons. An aerial contest of winged beings astride scaly and horned dragons is skillfully represented on a gravestone of the Han period, which was in the 2nd century AD. Under the reign of Emperor Qin Shi, which was 259 to 210 before the Common Era, Mao Mong, a great-grandfather of Mao Ying, styled the true man of sublime origin, ascended Mount Hua, mounted the clouds, and bestrode a dragon which was hidden in the clouds, rising into the azure spaces of heaven in broad daylight. In a hymn of God of Heaven composed under Emperor Wu, also before the Common Era, 100 years before the Common Era, of the Han Dynasty, the deity appears in dark clouds in a chariot drawn by winged flying dragons and adorned with many feathered streamers. The rapidity with which the deity descends is compared with that of the horses of the wind. Okay, so angelic messengers descended from heaven presenting Peiti, the emperor, with silk robes, red shoes, lying swords, and a chariot of 9 colors in which he ascended to the celestial abode at the time of the reign of Huang Ti. Okay, in fact, this is interesting, Dave. The term flying chariot, which is the ancient term Fei Chou, used in this passage, is now currently in China used for the designation of an aeroplane. So it's the character that they use now for aeroplane. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's ancient. The ancient language, which the things with languages is that they usually die. It's because new terms come in and they can't really keep up anymore. But we have here, and in fact other languages as well, the use of an ancient term describing a modern airplane. Right? Again, a flying chariot, which is fascinating stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, indeed. No, it really is, and if there's only a better way to describe it, I think that it's amazing that it's been retained.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the Bible references, Dave.
Exactly. Sodom and Gomorrah, which was the two cities that were being destroyed by with Lot and the pillar of salt, destruction by fire from the sky. Solomon owned a flying machine with which he visited the Queen of Sheba. How could you even imagine if there weren't flying machines that you could just fly around in a machine? I think that's something extraordinary. You'd want to be working on that straight away. Tell us about Ezekiel, Mac.
Now, he was taken in a flying machine to heaven. This is Ezekiel 1:4 to 1:24, and I'll quote this from the Bible. You can read it up yourself. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself. And a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. That's Ezekiel describing what he saw those thousands of years ago, right? Now, this also then brings us to the destruction of the walls of Jericho by sound. By sound.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that today. In fact, we know how powerful sound is. We've shared with you the video of the sound waves levitating steel balls.
That's correct.
You might, right? And you can use sound. In fact, we know that I think it's a high C can break glass and crystal, right? We know that for a fact. So if you, in fact, Tesla said, "Give me the right frequency and I'll shake the earth apart."
That's
so
right.
sonic weapons were used. I mean, that's amazing stuff if you think about it. What is more amazing, in fact, is, and Dave, I know you love this one.
Yeah, the wheels within wheels, Mackie, is equals.
Right? Engineer Joseph F. Blumrich, and this is something that Däniken mentioned in his books, Eric von Däniken. He works closely with the Ancient Aliens guys. Engineer Joseph F. Blumrich, a NASA engineer, a NASA engineer built Ezekiel's wheels within wheels vehicle as described in the Bible and patented it. He patented it. The patent title is in fact omnidirectional wheel. US patent number 3789947. 3789947. Date issued February 5, 1974. I will post that in the chat.
I'll also add that if you're a Mythbusters fan, their forklift truck has wheels within wheels and it can go in any direction it wants.
Yep.
So
correct.
Have a look at that one when you see it. The Ark of the Covenant, Mackie, that was built
yes,
and turned out to produce a electrical charge.
Correct. It's called the Hutchinson effect, and I've just pasted the link in there. So if you built the Ark of the Covenant, exactly the way it is described in the Bible, and the Bible is pretty precise, same with the, in fact, the Noah's Ark. Now, the Ark is not the same. Like the Ark of the Covenant is essentially a box, right, with gold fittings and so forth, and it produced a charge. No wonder people died when they touched it. I'm sure there's more to it.
There's also something about that being the exact measurements of the inside of the king's tomb, a sarcophagus, so that maybe that's where it came from originally. We don't know.
See, that's you're right, and the thing again that the sarcophagus, let's not forget here, outside pretty crappy, but on the inside perfectly worked.
Yeah, smooth.
Right
as
angles.
glass. Yep.
Smooth, and you tell me how you do that with a copper or bronze hammer and pestle and you know, not hammer and pestle, hammer and what's that thing when you, anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Chisel.
That's
hammer
the
a
one.
chisel. Chisel. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
On
So
granite.
yeah. I don't think so.
So,
and
did you want to? Like, we have quite a lot of stuff, Mackie. Did you want to continue this next week?
I think we should, because next week, we're going to talk to you about some more ancient tech artifacts here. We want to talk to you about a few other things as well, megalithic structures, and then maybe a summary. Following that, we have also prepared a show on deathbed confessions as posted on our Facebook site. The reason we didn't bring it to you today is because I think we want to do a little bit more work. There's some pretty interesting deathbed confessions out there. Dave and I would want to try to get some more detail on some and a bit more meat as well as a psychological evaluation of a deathbed confession. I mean, what's the worth of it? And I haven't been able to find one yet, right? I mean, if you have a deathbed confession, how reliable is it? How believable? Is you got nothing left to lose, so I guess you could just tell everybody everything, or is it just meant to throw people off the scent? So again, we're going to bring this to you next week, hopefully, all things being equal, and no asteroid hitting us. But
equal or not equal, yeah, there was meant to be an asteroid collision or something close. I don't know. We've seen them come and go and get close, but I didn't do it as news because I don't think it's worth it. It's 70,000 kilometers away, still too far away. To be honest, to be worried about. If it's a city killer, sure. If this is 2023, sure. If this is 2036, you got my interest, yeah.
Yes.
But until then, you know what? Meki, I love doing a show. I love doing a show with you, and I know that the listener base is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm really appreciating the people that are contacting us now to come on the show.
How cool is that?
I know. Did we ever think we'd get there? No.
It's just.
I felt like the lawyer from The Simpsons chasing Bart's ambulance for a story. Up until we got our first contacts to be on the show, and we're really pleased. We'd like to thank all of the listeners because we couldn't do it without you guys. Keep up the emails. I answer as many as I can, and certainly all the comments on our Facebook and our YouTube clips. Just keep the conversations going, guys. That's what's important.
Absolutely. And because you are the most important part of this, the listenership, the audience, if you will, the guys that actually make this possible. We shall not forget Nighthawk and freedomslips.com, the station Revolution Radio. He runs this entirely on goodwill and your donations, guys. So if you can donate, please do so. It's greatly appreciated, and it does keep the station running. If you like what you're hearing, if you like the other hosts, if you like our information, if you like to for this to keep going, I mean, we've done it for 2 years now. It's amazing. Then we are happy to do it. As long as Nighthawk is able to maintain the servers and keep the station alive. So if you do have any spare change, or even more, it'd be great if you can do that. Certainly, all the other hosts are fantastic as well, and do tune into the other shows, especially Solaris, just before us.
Do you know what? I'm actually listening to the station now rather than anything else. In my car when I'm driving, I have tunein.com, and I listen to the station. I just love it.
That's it. And thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week, guys.
Show 107. See you guys.
7 and 100.
Okay.